It was supposed to be nothing. Just a quiet birthday dinner with a few friends at a neighborhood bistro, the kind of place where you know the waitress by name, and the wine list is written in chalk. I'd reserved the back table, brought the wine she liked, and even worn that shirt she once said made me look like someone who reads expensive books. She'd been distant all day, but I chalked it up to work stress. Elise was there too, sitting across from us, her hand brushing my wife's wrist whenever she laughed. The three of us used to be inseparable, but something had shifted over the last year. Hard to name, easy to feel. Midway through the entree, right as I offered her a bite of my steak, a quiet habit between us for years, she pushed her chair back, wiped her mouth, and stood. "I'm over this," she said, voice too casual, too dismissive. Her fork clattered softly against the plate as she stepped back. A few people chuckled nervously. One friend raised a glass, unsure whether to toast or defuse. I looked at her, waiting for a smirk, a sign she was kidding, but her face was unreadable. Not angry, just detached. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. Elise didn't laugh. She looked at my wife, then turned to me and said quietly, "I'll wait with him." There was a long beat of silence. Chairs shifted. Someone cleared their throat. I didn't look at anyone else. I stood slowly, placed my napkin on the table, and nodded once, not to her, not to Elise, just to myself. Then I walked out. Elise didn't follow. No one did. The street outside was damp with leftover rain. I didn't light a cigarette. I haven't smoked in 8 years, but I felt the urge like muscle memory. My hand twitched toward an absent pocket. When I finally heard the door open, I turned, but it wasn't her. Just a waiter stepping out to dump trash. I didn't go back in. Didn't wait for her to explain or perform whatever apology she might have rehearsed. Something had cracked open at that table, and for the first time in months, I saw it clearly. She was done pretending, and I was done excusing. She didn't ride home with me. When I pulled the car up front, she was still inside, sipping from her wine glass like the whole dinner hadn't happened. I waited 10 minutes. No text. No sign of her coming. Finally, I drove home alone. Her car was already in the driveway when I got there. She must have taken a ride with someone else. I didn't bother guessing who. Inside, the house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, just vacancy. I found her in the living room, legs curled on the couch, earbuds in, wine in hand. The TV was on but muted. Her eyes flicked to me as I entered, then back to her phone. No apology. No mention of dinner. No acknowledgement of what she'd said. I stood by the doorway for a moment, waiting for her to take the earbuds out. She didn't. I finally asked calmly, "Do you want to talk about what happened tonight?" She pulled out one earbud with a lazy motion and looked at me like I'd interrupted a commercial. "Don't be dramatic," she said, her tone clipped. "You'll get over it." Then she smiled, not warmly, not kindly, just enough to end the conversation. The phrase hung in the air like smoke from a candle that had just been snuffed out. "You'll get over it." I nodded slowly and went upstairs. My hands were steady, my mind less so. In our bedroom, everything was in place, the bed still made, her clothes folded neatly, nothing obviously wrong. But the warmth was gone. It had been leaving in increments for months, I just hadn't noticed the final draft. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, shoes still on, staring at the wall across from me. Not thinking, just registering. Downstairs, the podcast she resumed was muffled but rhythmic. Something about personal boundaries, emotional realignment, reclaiming autonomy. She'd always liked control, of her schedule, her space, her image. But lately it felt like she wanted control of the narrative too. As if she was rewriting our history without telling me. As if everything we'd built could be reduced to a single dinner and a shrug. And that phrase, "You'll get over it," kept looping. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Let's talk." Just a verdict. One she thought I'd accept like it was a weather report. That night, I slept on my side of the bed. She never came up. In the morning, I found her already dressed, sipping green juice in the kitchen, scrolling her phone. She looked up briefly. "Morning," she said, like nothing had shifted. But it had, and I was already listening differently. There was no explosion, no door slamming, no plates breaking, no shouting. Just a silence that reshaped everything. For the next few days, we moved like coworkers on the last week of a doomed startup. Polite, efficient, avoidant. She left early, came home late. When I cooked, She said she already ate. When she cooked, it was for one. The real shift came on Thursday. I came home from work and found the master bedroom half empty. Her skincare bottles gone. Her side of the closet hollowed out like she'd been airlifted in the night. The nightstand she once cluttered with books now held only a charging cable and a folded robe. She was in the guest room. When I asked, gently, with no accusation, she didn't look up from her phone. Just muttered, "Just trying to sleep better." No conversation. No apology. Just a declaration, as casual as her wine preference. That night, as I passed the guest room to head to my own, I heard a familiar voice coming through her phone. One of those podcasts again. A woman preaching the gospel of self-sufficiency, boundaries, the false myths of shared identity. Her voice was smooth, persuasive. It wasn't therapy. It was ammunition disguised as insight. I stood there a beat too long. She must have heard me because she turned the volume down. Not off, just enough to remind me this was her space now. The next morning, I found a calendar invite in my email. No message. Just a subject line. Relationship check-in. Scheduled for 1 month out, at a local cafe. No link, no therapist, just her version of logistics. I stared at it for a while, wondering if I was supposed to feel relieved. I didn't. At dinner that night, we sat across from each other with separate meals, separate phones, separate lives. I asked again if she wanted to talk sooner. She didn't even look up, just tapped the screen and said, "It's all on the calendar." The silence between us wasn't absence. It was a new form of presence, hollow, rehearsed, strategic, like she was staging the exit before the play was even over. And I realized then, she wasn't planning a conversation. She was drafting an ending. But I wasn't ready to exit without knowing what role I'd really played. If I was the cause, or just the casualty. It started small. She began disappearing on weekends. At first it was reconnecting with herself, a yoga retreat, a solo hike. Once she said she was helping Elise reorganize her apartment. Therapy through feng shui, she called it, half smirking over her suitcase. I didn't press. Not because I didn't care, but because I was watching, listening. One Saturday, I offered to cook dinner. I kept it light. Her favorite pasta, good wine, that playlist she used to like when we danced in the kitchen after work. She walked in, still in her coat, pulled off her shoes by the door, and said flatly, "I already ate." No explanation, no eye contact. But when I passed her car in the driveway later that night, I caught the scent through the cracked window. Garlic, lemon, takeout containers still steaming. Enough for two. Not the kind of meal you eat alone in a hurry. The next weekend, a shared friend, not someone close, just a peripheral acquaintance, posted a story on social media. It lasted less than 5 seconds, likely meant for close friends only. But I saw it before it disappeared. 2 wine glasses, a charcuterie board on a low table, and in the background 2 shadows on the couch. One clearly hers, the way she sat, that tilt of her neck was unmistakable. The other not mine. Elise's laugh echoed faintly in the background. The caption read, "Recharge weekends." My wife commented minutes later, "Best medicine." That night, when she returned, she dropped her overnight bag by the door and went straight to the guest room. I watched her walk past me like I was part of the furniture. Not cold, not even angry, just absent. I didn't say anything. Not yet. The next day, we shared coffee in the kitchen in near silence. She hummed as she scrolled her phone, replying to comments, tapping hearts. I stirred my cup and said casually, "Elise looked relaxed this weekend." She blinked once, then smiled without lifting her eyes. "She's finally getting her balance back." I nodded. "That's good." She didn't notice the pause before my next sip. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised anymore. But I'd stopped hoping. And I'd started cataloging. I didn't confront her. Not because I was afraid, but because truth matters more when it reveals itself, not when it's forced into the light. Confrontation would have made her retreat deeper into whatever story she was already crafting. Instead, I watched, listened, moved silently beneath her radar. She thought I was passive, that I'd accepted the new arrangement, but I was collecting details, not emotions. I started with our shared audiobook account. We'd used it for years, long road trips, shared playlists. That winter we got snowed in and listened to an entire series by the fire. I logged in quietly one Monday morning. Something new had appeared in the library, a romantic suspense series neither of us had ever touched. Book 1 was already 4 hours in. Book 2 halfway done. All of it streamed on weekends. I clicked through the playback history. The pattern was too precise to be coincidence. Friday evenings, 1 or 2 chapters. Saturday afternoons, full sessions. Sunday night, playback stopped exactly when her phone's battery level dropped in the logs. It wasn't just the books. It was the timing, the consistency, the emotional tone of the narration, whispered dialogue, lovers hiding in plain sight, coded exchanges beneath polite conversations. She hadn't just left the marriage. She was building a separate world, one with rituals, shared habits, and someone listening beside her. I didn't tell anyone. Not Elise, not friends, not even the 1 or 2 people who noticed something was off and asked if I was doing okay. I didn't need sympathy. I needed clarity. The next weekend, I took a walk right before she returned. The house was still. Her car wasn't in the driveway yet. I stepped into the guest room and looked at her overnight bag, still unzipped. Inside, a paperback copy of the same book from the audiobook series, bookmarked near the end. She was hedging, listening aloud in one space, reading privately in another, like someone who couldn't risk losing the thread, or the connection it represented. I placed the book back exactly as I'd found it. When she got home that evening, she kissed the top of my head like a memory, like she was impersonating a version of herself she no longer lived in. I didn't react. But the space between us had changed. She thought it was distance. She didn't know it was evidence. I never raised my voice. That was the one decision I kept coming back to: control. Not silence. Not retreat. Control. When I finally moved, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was precise. I started by printing the still from the social media story. The one with the wine glasses, the shadows on the couch. It wasn't incriminating in the way she might expect. No faces, no embrace, nothing headline-worthy. But it was unmistakable if you knew what you were looking at. And I did. I folded the printout once and slid it into a plain envelope. No name, no note on the front. Just a quiet detail waiting to be discovered. Then I sat at the kitchen table with a pen and wrote 6 words on a torn piece of notebook paper. I heard you were over this. Then, beneath it, after a deliberate pause, me too. Consider this your silence returned. I placed the note inside the envelope with the photo, sealed it, and waited. That night, while she was in the shower, I set the envelope on her nightstand, right next to the untouched couple's workbook she'd ordered off some influencer's recommendation and never opened. The sticker was still on the front cover. Then I went to our closet, packed a single bag, just essentials, a few days' clothes, passport, laptop, documents that mattered. I didn't take everything, just enough. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a robe, steam trailing behind her, humming something under her breath. When she saw the bag by the door, she paused, just slightly, then continued drying her hair like nothing had shifted. I said nothing. I walked to the front door, keys in hand. She didn't ask where I was going. Maybe because she already knew. Maybe because she didn't want to hear the answer. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently, but with finality. That night, I stayed at a hotel 2 towns over. Slept better than I had in weeks. Not peacefully, but without weight. The next morning, I checked my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Just a read receipt on the shared account. She'd opened the envelope. She'd seen the photo. She hadn't responded. Which, somehow, told me everything I needed to know. She waited 12 hours before reaching out. At 9:07 the next morning, my phone lit up. 1 missed call, no voicemail. Just her name on the screen, no picture anymore. I let it ring out. A few minutes later, a text arrived: we should talk. That wasn't what it looked like. No greeting. No apology. Just a statement trying to preempt something she hadn't earned the right to shape. I didn't reply immediately. I wanted to feel what I felt, not what I was supposed to feel. There was no rage, no heartbreak. Just a quiet, cold disappointment. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes you wonder how long you've been lying to yourself. By noon, I sent a response. No words. No explanation. Just the screenshot. The story post. The 2 shadows. Her comment. Best medicine. The timestamp matched her weekend disappearance. It matched the audiobook sessions. It matched the dinner she didn't eat with me. I didn't caption it. I didn't ask for a reply. Silence, when earned, is the most honest language left. I saw the read receipt. And then, nothing. She didn't write back. No follow-up. No paragraph-long explanations. No voice note of trembling justifications, just digital silence. But I could imagine the room she was sitting in when she opened it. The shock not of being caught, but of being outmaneuvered. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't begged. I hadn't asked her to explain something she knew I already understood. She thought I'd be wounded and waiting. She didn't expect absence. The next few days there were no more texts, no calls, no "let's talk" messages. Just the digital trace of someone who'd realized they no longer held the final word. And that, maybe, they never had. It didn't take long for the ripple to reach the edges. The friend group splintered within a week. Some took her side, or tried to. They framed it as emotional confusion, a rough patch, something all couples go through. They sent vague texts with phrases like "no one's perfect," or "there's always two sides." Those were the ones who wanted the group chat to stay intact more than they wanted the truth. Others were quieter. They reached out to me in ones and twos. Some just sent short messages. "I saw what happened. I'm sorry." A few admitted what I already suspected. One guy, Marcus, pulled me aside after a volunteer event we both attended and said, without looking me in the eye, "I never wanted to be in the middle of anything. But I saw them once. Your wife and Elise. Together. Way before that dinner." I didn't press. I didn't need details. He told me enough. The group chat where we once shared plans, birthdays, photos, it went silent for a few days. Then one by one, people began removing Elise from threads. Events that used to include everyone now had private invites. Brunches she once hosted went unanswered. My wife tried to hold her footing at first. Posted a few inspirational quotes, photos of her juice cleanses, book stacks about independence and self-renewal. But her captions shifted. A defensive edge crept in. Growth isn't always graceful. Let people think what they want. I know my truth. But the likes dwindled. The comments dried up. The friend group wasn't punishing her. They were just tired of the performance. They saw what I saw now. It hadn't been a crisis. It had been a plan. A quiet drift she disguised as evolution. And when the fallout arrived, she stood in the middle of it like someone who thought she'd packed an umbrella, only to find it missing when the sky broke open. Elise disappeared from most social feeds within the month. And my wife? She was left defending a friendship that cost her a marriage. I didn't bury myself in work to forget her. I buried myself in work because I could finally breathe. Without the emotional static, the sideways glances, the walking on glass routines, I had focus again. The kind that makes you remember who you were before the apology phase of a dying relationship. I started coming in earlier. Not to avoid home, I'd already moved out of that, but because I wanted to build something. Something that wasn't about repair or reaction. Something mine. People noticed. One morning, after a quarterly briefing, our division had stopped me in the hallway and said, "That pitch deck's solid. Sharp voice. You should be leading the next one." 3 weeks later I was. And when the next reorg came, I didn't just survive it, I landed a promotion. Nothing earth-shattering, just a step up, more control, more leverage. But it felt clean. Earned. My new team was sharp, younger in some cases, but hungry. One of them, Lena, had met me months earlier at a volunteer seminar I almost skipped. I'd given a short talk on boundary setting and leadership. Irony not lost on me now. She remembered it. Said something I didn't expect on her first week under me. "You were the only speaker who didn't talk like he had something to prove. You just sounded like someone who'd been through it." I smiled, but I didn't explain what it was. That was the thing now. People didn't need the full story to feel the difference. I wasn't louder. I was quieter, but grounded, focused, less afraid of being misunderstood, and more committed to not misunderstanding myself again. The work didn't heal me, but it reminded me of who I was when I wasn't being reduced to someone else's phase. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was rebuilding. I felt like I was building, with my own hands. It came on a Tuesday, middle of the afternoon. My phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen since the unraveling, Elise. I stared at it for a while. Let it sit in notifications like something still breathing but barely moving. I expected silence from her, maybe distance. I didn't expect this. The message wasn't long. "She's spiraling. I thought she had a plan. But it was just panic dressed as freedom. I shouldn't have followed her there." No apology. No explanation. Just a confession dressed as insight. Like she wanted to be understood without having to be accountable. I read it once, then again. Each word was calculated, not to ask forgiveness, but to draw a line between them. She's spiraling, I thought. Her plan. As if Elise had only been a passenger. But I'd seen the shadows, heard the silence, watched them both disappear at the same time, reappear with matching smirks, trading loyalty for adrenaline and calling it rebirth. I didn't reply. There are some closures that don't come in envelopes or long text chains. Some people don't deserve the echo of your voice in their story. I deleted the message. Not because I needed distance, but because I'd already arrived there. By the time I stepped outside for a late lunch, the sun had broken through a stretch of gray clouds, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to look over my shoulder. Some endings don't have to be spoken aloud. Some truths are confirmed not with words, but with the absence of one. Months passed. I didn't keep track like I used to, counting days since I moved out, weeks since the silence, measuring time by distance from her. Eventually, time just passed, like it was supposed to. I'd settled into a rhythm. Not healing, not exactly. Just life on steadier ground. The mornings were quieter. My meals were simpler. The home I rented had fewer things, but everything in it had a place. And none of it asked to be forgiven. One Friday evening, walking home from a meeting that ran late, I passed by the bistro, the same one from the birthday dinner. Same chalkboard menu. Same warm lighting through the window. I almost didn't look, but something made me glance. She was sitting alone at the corner table. Her face was turned toward the window, not expecting anyone, just staring at her drink. The same drink she always ordered. Neat, minimal, like her. No friends this time. No Elise. No noise. There was a vacancy about her that I recognized, not loneliness, not quite. More like someone waiting for a performance that had ended without applause. She looked up and saw me. For a moment, she didn't react. Then her eyes widened slightly. Not shock, more like memory surfacing too late. She opened her mouth, almost said something. I nodded once. Not with bitterness. Not with resentment. Just acknowledgement of what was. Of what couldn't be unmade. Then I kept walking. I didn't hear her call my name, but I knew she did. I felt the shape of it behind me. I didn't turn. Some things deserved to be left exactly where they broke.